Okay, now let me give you some actual techniques on how to improve your dog's recall. First one that I always like to do is called the restrained recall. This is a real fun exercise to do with dogs and puppies. Just got a new puppy. This is a great thing to do with your kids. And it starts teaching your dog to come to you when you call them. And the restrained recall is very easy. What it does is it sets your dog up to successfully do the command. And that's what you want to remember, is that when it comes to the command come, you want your dog to successfully do the command every time you say come. And that's what I see a big problem with a lot of new dog owners, is they give their dog too much freedom too fast. And what the dog learns is how to kind of tune the owner out. If your dog's over there and you're saying, Sparky, come here, Sparky, Sparky, come, Sparky. You start calling the dog over and over and over, and the dog just learns to ignore you. Okay, the dog just starts to tune you out. And so what we want is we want to make sure that when we say come, the dog moves towards you. So the first exercise that I like to do is restrained recall. And you do this, it takes two people. You can do it with one person. We're doing a whole nother video on how to do this step by step. So you can just look for that video. You might want to subscribe so that you get the update when that video comes out. The way we do it is one person holds on to the leash. The other person gets the dog excited. So imagine you and I are working together. I have your dog's leash, right? I'm holding on to the leash. You come over and you get your dog all excited, super excited. So I'm holding it. And then once your dog's really excited, you run away. You take off on your dog. So now your dog's like, whoa, this is all exciting. This is fun. My owner just got me all excited and worked up. And now you're 20 feet away, but I'm holding your dog back. I'm restraining your dog, but your dog is in that very excited, motivated state, right? They're set up to race towards you. So now you're about 20 feet away. You say your dog's name, Sparky. I drop the leash. I just let it go. Your dog races to you and you say, come. You're saying come as the dog's actually doing it. And then when your dog gets to you, I always recommend for everybody to grab the dog's collar and then reward the dog for coming to them. So we set the dog up, we get them real motivated. The dog races to you when you say the command come, and when they get to you, you grab the collar. And I just do this in the beginning because I want the dog to come all the way into you. I want it so that if you reach for the dog, they're expecting it. And I don't want your dog to do a drive-by, you know, like Labs and Goldens. You call them, they come racing at you 35 miles an hour, and they go right by you 35 miles an hour. So I want your dog to come to you, and I want you to be able to get them. I don't want them playing keep away. I don't want them doing drive-bys. I don't want them to duck away as you try to grab their collar. So the restrained recall is we set the dog up by motivating them, and we want the dog to start associating the word as they're doing the command. We want it real fun, exciting, rewarding. And this is how you start laying the foundation for teaching your dog the command come. Okay, next tip. One thing that you're going to need if you want your dog to get good at coming back to you, the long line. That's how we talked about in the first part of this video. The very first tip was letting your dog develop that sense of freedom. And the way you let them develop that sense of freedom is with a long line, okay? But the long line can also be used to help the dog learn to come back to you no matter what's going on. And without that long line, again, the dog can start to learn to ignore you. And we're making a video also on how to use a long line. But the long line is used by saying the dog's name, Sparky, come. They ignore you. Now you can give the dog a little tug. And what I like to do, once I give the dog the tug, is I start backing up. I want the dog drawn into me. I don't want to reel him in, okay? I want to pop just a little quick, Sparky, come, pop the long line, and then I start backing up, because movement is what motivates dog, right? If you start moving, the dog a lot of times will just naturally come towards you. You know, if you run away from your dog, a lot of times they'll start chasing you. Right? They get excited about that kind of stuff. And so we use that movement, a combination of using the long line, backing up to get the dog to follow through. And so now with the 30-foot long line on your dog, you can start practice teaching them to come to you from a distance. And you don't want to, as I said, reel the dog in like a fish. You want to just give them a little tug, back up, draw them into you. Same thing. They get to you, collar, reward. Okay, but long line is a crucial piece of equipment that you need to teach your dog to come back to you reliably. Okay. Next tip. And this tip is really important, because what your dog needs to learn is to come back to you when they are distracted. Okay, distractions is a big problem. So what I explain to most people when they come to my classes is I always say, you know, your dogs already pretty much know what the command come means. They do, and I get some arguments. Some people say, my dog really doesn't know what come means. I'm like, yeah, they probably do. And my point is that if you're in the house, and you go from one room to the next room, and you say, hey, Sparky, come here, the dog usually comes trotting over to you. Usually. And if not in the house, then yeah, we do have some work to do. But in the house, if you go, like I said, from one room to the next, you say, come on, Sparky, then they come running over to you, right? Your dog kind of understands that when you say their name, and it's very easy to get the dog to move towards you when you do that kind of stuff. The big problem is that when you're outside, there's competing motivation, right? Your dog is distracted by the environment. First, they're free. Hey, this is nice. I can cruise around. And then the other thing is, there's a lot of changes going on, and even in a yard like this every day. This morning, there's already been 3-4 deer that have passed through. We had a bunch of turkeys come through. There's all kinds of movement going on constantly. And so your dog picks up on that and they want to go check these things out. Now your dog's over there on the tree line, they're sniffing, and you say, come, and the dog just tunes you out. And that's where we need to get the dog to follow through. And that's where we start practicing by teaching the dog to come to us when they're distracted, not when they're looking at you. We have to practice teaching the dog to come to you when they're distracted. You see, what I never really do is practice teaching my dog to come to me from a down stay or a sit stay. That's the way, when I went to my first obedience class a long time ago, we used to tell the dogs to sit, we'd stay, and we'd walk 20 feet away, and then we'd say, come. Dogs will come to us and we reward. So that's a good exercise too. I'm not knocking that. But my point is that your dog, when you really need it, they're not sitting there waiting for you to call them, right? Your dog's not sitting in your backyard just waiting for you to call them. When you really need your dog to come to, it's when they're distracted by something, when they're sniffing, looking at something, or about to chase something. That's when you need a dog to come back to you. So what we need to do is we actually need to practice while the dog is distracted. That's the big thing. And if you can get your dog to come back to you when they're distracted, now you have a good recall. And so in the next tip, I want to talk about a way of teaching your dog and practicing with your dog to come back from a distraction so that they get really good at it. But again, you have your dog on a long line, they're sniffing something, that's the time to call them. Now when they're looking at you, call them when they're distracted by something. Try that with your dog. Okay, second to last tip, and this is the PREMACK principle. Okay, the PREMACK principle, fancy term, a very easy concept to understand. PREMACK was a scientist who studied behavior. It's also called Grandma's Law, and this might be a little bit easier for you to understand. Grandma's Law is PREMACK principle, and the way this works, the same thing. So you go over to Grandma's house, right? I used to go to my grandmother's house, and all my cousins would be there, especially on Thanksgiving, and we used to love playing football afterwards. You sit down for dinner, everybody eats, and then you're gonna go play football. And so we used to love going to play football, and Grandma would say, first, before you can go do this, something you really want, you first have to do this, something that you don't want. First, you have to wash the dishes. So to play football, you got to do this. We didn't want to do that. We want to do this. But to get this, we had to do this. That makes sense? And you can do this with your dog. You can practice teaching your dog to come back to you from distraction. Same way, PREMACK principle. What I do in my classes is we take food and we'll take a treat and we'll throw it on the ground. And we have the dog on leash because you need to be able to control your dog in the early stages. The dog is allowed to go up to the food but not get the food. So they're kept about a foot away from the food. And what we do is we call the dog back to us. Come. The dog comes into us. Collar. Yes. Now the dog can go get the food. Okay. And what this is doing is it's teaching the dog that to get that, you have to do this. To get football, you have to wash the dishes. To get the treat, you got to come to me. To get the toy, you have to come to me. Right. And this way, you'll sometimes see the dog click right away and it improves performance. It's like if you have to wash dishes and once you're done with the dishes, you can go play football. You're going to wash those dishes pretty fast to get what you really want. So if the dog really wants that, they're going to come racing back to you to get that. The PREMACK principle, Grandma's Law, whatever you want to call it, very effective way of teaching the dog around distractions. Get the dog to do something first before they get what they want. And it's not just for recall. You can use it in a lot of different situations. So PREMACK principle, really good thing to understand and use when you're teaching your dog to come back to you. Final tip is, if you want really good, reliable behavior, you may want to think about using an electronic collar. Okay? Electronic collars are really, really good today. Technology's come a long way from where they used to be. If you're going to use a collar, I highly recommend working with a good trainer because a collar used correctly can do a lot to teach your dog to come back to you when you call them. Now, what I want you to understand is that an e-collar, an electronic collar, can be done at very low levels. It's a little tingle that the dog feels. Put it on your arm, feel it for yourself. I said you want to use a good collar. You don't want to get one of these cheap, shoddy ones. And this is how you can teach your dog to come back to you successfully when they're off leash. Now, if you're kind of shocked and horrified at the thought of that, don't use one, okay? Don't use one. But if you want some reliability, if you want your dog to get good at coming back to you, e-collars done correctly, right? We take our time. We take a lot of time to condition the dog properly so they understand what the feeling of the collar means so that we don't have to use high levels. We can use it at a very low level to get the dog to come back to you. And if you think they're evil, they really are life-saving devices. You can argue with me on this. Actually, don't argue with me. If you want to leave like nasty comments and stuff like that, just don't watch my videos. Seriously, you know, if you like the videos, subscribe. If you don't like it, if you disagree with my style of training, you know, there's plenty of people out there that you like. But the dog training world, right now, it's crazy. Everybody's fighting, hating each other. And so, and a lot of it has to do with the tools and stuff like that, prong collars, e-collars, and all that stuff. But if you think about it, right, invisible fence keeps a lot of dogs safe. Hundreds of thousands of dogs safely contained in your yard as an invisible fence. Now, that's not what I'm talking about. Invisible fence is different than using an e-collar to teach the dog to come to you. But if you think about it, these tools are life-saving tools for the dog. And that's what we care about. That's what we're concerned about, is that we want your dog to be safe. So used correctly, the e-collar is a phenomenal tool. Used incorrectly, it's the worst. It's the worst. It's terrible. But again, used correctly, your dog can have a great life. So something to think about. There's plenty of videos on e-collars and information. So check it out. All right, so I hope these 10 tips have really helped you improve your dog's recall. As always, if you like this channel, feel free to subscribe. Nah, there's plenty of other trainers out there that you can watch that are just positive only and stuff like that. But here, one thing we really focus on is making sure that you understand how training really works. And again, you'll always see me come back to its reinforcement and punishment. Okay? There's some other things in there, obviously, but to get a behavior to increase or to get a behavior to stop, that's what you need to do and understand. You have to understand how it works and how to use it properly. So thanks again for watching. Have a great day.